Inuus was one of the most ancient and obscure pastoral deities of early Roman religion, associated especially with the region of Latium and connected with fertility, animal husbandry, and the untamed forces of nature. He was regarded as belonging to the earliest layer of Roman religious belief, representing a primitive divine presence long before the development of the organized state cults of Rome. The name Inuus was interpreted by ancient writers as being related to the Latin verb inere, meaning to enter or to engage in sexual union. And this linguistic connection led Roman scholars to associate the god, primarily, with fertility and reproduction. Through this interpretation, Inuus came to be understood as a divine force responsible for the increase of flocks, the fertility of the land, and the generative power of human beings. Roman authors often described him as a wild and ancient deity whose worship belonged to the rural countryside rather than to the formal temples of the city. In Roman tradition, Inuus was frequently identified with Faunus and Lupercus, both of whom were pastoral gods associated with the protection of herds and the natural landscape. His cult was believed to be centered particularly around the sacred Lupercal cave at the base of the Palatine Hill, one of the oldest holy places in Rome and the legendary location where the she-wolf was said to have nursed Romulus and Remus. Because the Lupercal stood at the heart of Rome's foundation traditions, the worship of Inuus became indirectly connected with the earliest history of the city. Some Roman writers described Inuus as the original deity honoured during the festival of the Lupercalia, suggesting that the fertility rituals performed there were dedicated to him. In this way, Inuus formed part of the sacred landscape associated with the origins of Rome and the survival of its legendary founders. The Roman commentator Servius, writing in his explanations of Virgil's Aeneid, stated that Inuus was essentially a form or aspect of Faunus, and that the god worshipped at the Lupercal was known by this name. According to Servius, Inuus was closely connected with herds and especially with goats, and this association explained why goats were among the principal animals sacrificed during the Lupercalia. Some scholars of antiquity also suggested that Inuus resembled the Greek god Pan, particularly in the Roman traditions that trace the introduction of pastoral cults in Latium to Evander of Arcadia, who was believed to have brought the worship of Pan Lycaeos to the region. This interpretation reflected the Roman tendency to identify native Italian deities with similar figures from Greek religion. Although no definite artistic representation of Inuus has survived, it is generally believed that he may have been imagined in a form similar to Faunus or Pan, perhaps as a being with both human and goat-like features, a type of figure commonly used in antiquity to symbolize the wild and untamed powers of nature. Ancient writers suggested that Inuus was thought to wander through forests, hillsides, and open pastures, and that shepherds in particular regarded him as a protective presence. Like Pan, Inuus was sometimes believed capable of startling humans, with sudden appearances or strange sounds in lonely places, reinforcing the idea that he belonged to the mysterious and unpredictable realm of the wilderness. The role of Inuus in Roman religion extended beyond the protection of animals to include the fertility of human beings as well. His divine power was believed to influence marriage, childbirth, and the continuation of families, and rituals associated with him often emphasize the generative forces of nature. During the festival of the Lupercalia, the priests used strips of goatskin to strike women lightly as part of a ritual believed to promote fertility and safe childbirth, and this practice was understood as an expression of the life-giving power attributed to Inuus. Through such rites, the god became associated with both human and animal reproduction, making him a central figure in the pastoral religious imagination of early Latium. The antiquity of the cult of Inuus is suggested by the absence of a known temple or permanent priesthood devoted specifically to him. since the earliest Roman deities were often worshipped in natural settings, rather than in constructed sanctuaries. It is likely that offerings to Inuus took place in rural areas of Latium or in sacred groves and open spaces near the Palatine Hill, and many of these early places of worship disappeared as the city of Rome expanded. This lack of clear archaeological evidence contributed to the obscurity of Inuus in later Roman religion, and allowed his identity to merge gradually with that of Faunus and Lupercus. As Roman religion developed into a more structured system, the independent identity of Inuus faded, and he came to be regarded largely as another name or aspect of Faunus or Lupercus. Nevertheless, the name Inuus survived in literary and antiquarian traditions as a reminder of the earliest religious practices associated with the Lupercal and the pastoral world that preceded the rise of Rome as a city. The figure of Inuus thus came to represent the pre-urban past of Latium, embodying the forests, meadows, and grazing lands that existed before the Palatine Hill became the centre of Roman civilization.